The Steelers win over the New York Giants 26-18.
Christian McCaffrey getting very close to his return. Can we see him on the field?
Good news long-term for the Green Bay Packers on the injury front, but what it means against the Detroit Lions.
The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NFL Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in the NFL from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NFL Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NFL.
The Steelers win over the New York Giants 26-18.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast.
Now, I know there's going to be people out there. They're saying it right now. They're saying it at the screens. Who cares? It's the Giants. They're going to try to diminish this win because the Giants aren't a good football team. And they're right. Giants aren't a good football team. But this was the game that everyone says, "Oh, the Steelers they're going to drop this one because they just had some really good wins and they can't stack wins. They might, this is going to be the Mike Tomlin trap game or whatever." But here's the thing: there were several things that didn't go the Steelers' way in this game, and they still found a win. You have the touchdown that got erased. The touchdown, the opening drive of the game, drives beautiful. It's perfect, and it gets wrecked by a face mask by Broderick Jones. We're going to talk about him later. That touchdown gets erased. You have Van Jefferson missing his spot on a touchdown where if he just stays in the spot he's supposed to be in, Russell Wilson putting the ball there. That's another touchdown. You have Calvin Austin breaking over the very next play. Russell Wilson not seeing him. That could have been a touchdown. George Pickens get a perfect pass, perfect hands, and just misses the ground by a blade of grass with one of his foot, gets another foot down twice, and it's not a touchdown. You had all those things not go your way. You still found a way to score 26 points, and you still found a way to win this game. This was a game, Steelers fans. This was a game that last year and the year before, and maybe even the year before that, the Steelers wouldn't have won. And it's not because the Giants were some immaculate team. They made some really good plays. But because the Steelers didn't dominate with the style of ball that they've been dependent upon to win them their games the past 3 years, even going back to Ben Roethlisberger's final year. The defense didn't have a bad game last night at Acrisure Stadium, but they also weren't dominant. They allowed 18 points. That's not terrible. You should be able to win against 18 points, but let's face it, a lot of times they hadn't. In fact, this is the first time the Steelers have won without you have won this year while not allowing 15 points. But they let up a 45-yard rushing touchdown. They let up some third and longs, even though generally they were pretty good on third downs, holding the Giants to 5 of 15 there. But there's certainly things to clean up on both sides, offense and defense. And I think that's something that we're going to talk about. But we have to look at, when you look at all those things that worked against them, the missed touchdowns on offense, the lack of clean, dominant play on defense against an offense that was very suspect in the Giants, what got them over the hump? Well, it was big plays being made by guys and signs of progress from this team showing that they're ready to step up in different ways and become more of a complete team this year that doesn't just try to beat you in one way. Good teams find ways to find ways to win the way that they're supposed to find way to win. They have a script. They find a way to do it. Really good teams are consistently finding that script and forcing that on opponents and winning that team. But great teams are the teams that are consistently doing that and then still finding other ways to beat you when their script is kind of knocked off course. And again, I'm not saying the Steelers are a great team, but this was an instance where I think a little bit of the script got knocked out of their hands and they kind of had to adjust. They needed a little bit more offense. They needed some big play on special teams again, and they got it done. Ladies and gentlemen, Calvin Austin had himself a night. This might be the Calvin Austin game that helps him kind of take a step up and start finding his place in this team more. He finished out with a punt return touchdown that was huge for the Steelers, the first touchdown of the game, and then the only other touchdown of the game for the Steelers, a 29-yard touchdown reception with a really well-run corner route and a perfect ball thrown by Russell Wilson. Great job by Calvin Austin. We're going to play his clip in a little bit because we talked to him, and I think he deserves a ton of credit for this game. Also, Russell Wilson, keeping the offense efficient. They have over 400 yards of offense for the second straight game. That hadn't happened since 2018 for the Steelers. If you remember, there was that giant stretch where under Matt Canada, the Steelers didn't have any 400-yard total offensive games. And here they are doing that. And again, it's not all on Russell Wilson. A lot of it's on Najee Harris. A lot of it's on, on this guy, that guy. They're spreading the ball around. But that's the whole point of why they brought in Russell Wilson, because he was going to balance things out. Najee Harris ran for over 100 yards for the third straight time, which also hasn't happened in 3 straight games for a Steelers running back since 2018. That's another good sign. You had the defense on the flip side of things. When the defense ever started to buckle, if there was big questions, guess who came to the rescue? The guys that have come to the rescue for the past few years. TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith coming in to save the day. Each get 2 sacks, crucial forced fumble and recovered fumble by TJ Watt in the red zone late in the game. 2 turnovers by this defense to close the game out. And you look at all the things the Steelers did on offense, a lot of it was keyed up by Russell Wilson doing what we said all offseason they brought him into Pittsburgh to do, and that was to hit the deep ball by forcing teams to have to honor it, or they were going to be hurting from it. And Russell Wilson did do that several times in this game, helping kind of back people off the line of scrimmage, give the running game more space to grow. Najee Harris finishing this game, 19 carries, 114 yards. Jaylen Warren also getting going, 9 carries, 46 yards. Ultimately, again, spreading the ball around, finding that balance. And even some of those Russell Wilson throws, so the ones that not just the deep one he had to George Pickens, which was a phenomenal throw in between 2 defenders on the sideline. If George Pickens just tiptoes the right way, it's a touchdown. Not just go routes, but also those back shoulder throws that you're seeing. The one he hit Van Jefferson for, which looked just like the one he hit George Pickens for. Now, when I'm covering the game and I'm talking about those, and I say that's a dime from Russell Wilson, and you know what I'm talking about, the back shoulder, where it's kind of like, hey, the receiver's running deep down the field, then he kind of stops the defenders in man coverage, so he can't afford to look up and find the ball in time, but the ball's perfectly put on the back shoulder there. That's a play that Russell Wilson has done for over a decade now. It's something that we saw last week when he hit George Pickens. It's something, again, that he did this week when he hit Van Jefferson. It's something the Steelers have been working on in practice. It's not an accident. It's not an underthrow. It's intentional. It's what he does. Stop saying that is not, because you're misinformed. And in fact, here's Calvin Austin, when we talked to him in the Steelers locker room, talking about that chemistry that they've been building with Russell Wilson and how much practice they've been putting in before and after the Steelers practices to get those types of things right and to get that kind of timing. Here's Calvin Austin in the Steelers locker room after the winning over the Giants.
Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if they win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. I cashed Steelers -5.5. I cashed Broncos minus, I don't remember the number, but honestly, they couldn't have made the number high enough for me not to want to take the Broncos against the Panthers. They would have covered it up to 2 touchdowns. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. And that winning $5 bet could be an NBA game. Tonight, the Nets host the Nuggets. FanDuel loves the Nuggets in this one, has them favored by 6.5. While the Nuggets have been brutal to start the season. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Christian McCaffrey getting very close to his return. Can we see him on the field?
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And according to Kyle Shanahan, Christian McCaffrey, quote, has had no setbacks. Looks like we're on track, but he's going to hit it hard this week while we're gone and simulate some practice stuff for himself. As long as it all goes good, hopefully we'll get him back at practice next week. So McCaffrey going to hit it hard this week during the bye, and this coming Monday, good chance Christian McCaffrey's practice window is reopened and he's potentially back on the field for the San Francisco 49ers in week 10. So we've got some other running back injuries behind him now too. So comes at a good time. That was kind of the plan we had talked about. It's like maybe expect McCaffrey back some point after the bye week, and it's looking like that's the direction this is going. And obviously the 49ers offense could use Christian McCaffrey. Any offense in the NFL could use a talent like Christian McCaffrey added to the mix.
Who needs Christian McCaffrey when you have Isaac, don't call me Raheem Mostert, Garindo, right? Like he's running extremely well. I would like to see this. What combination of guys and how they utilize guys that have different skill sets, with Christian McCaffrey. Because Jordan Mason, drastically different. And I think that Garindo, very different, right? And this is a guy, Garindo, who looks like with every carry, he's getting a little bit more and more comfortable. He had a carry early in the season. It was like one carry, lost 2 yards, 49 fan. Hey, he stinks. Get him out of here. His vision sucks. And the more you see him carry the ball, he's getting a little more comfortable with Kyle Shanahan and those guys want. And he's going to look better and better. Hitting the holes, you see the speed, you see the acceleration. I do think he brings a different element, a different dynamic to the backfield. So you add that with what you get from Christian McCaffrey, hopefully returning soon. How do they balance that with what Jordan Mason gives you as well? Because before, Jordan Mason was kind of the odd man out. It was like going straight from CMC to Elijah Mitchell. So do they want something a little different? Do they still want that thumper? Like, there's injuries to Jordan Mason. I know we're going to talk about, but just the backs as a whole, like how do you think that rotation will be?
I think we won't see Isaac Garindo ever again. And I think we'll see Jordan Mason twice a game or something like that. I think that's the way Kyle Shanahan's been. So until we've seen him change how he runs things, then because it's not like we saw Patrick Taylor after Jordan Mason went down. Patrick Taylor's been, helping return kickoffs with Garindo. Garindo comes in the game. It's all Garindo. I don't think Patrick Taylor got a carry for the 49ers, was on the field at all. So Kyle Shanahan really, of all coaches in the NFL, loves using one guy. And I don't know if he has to worry about a pitch count as much with Christian McCaffrey coming off the injury. If he's, if they tell him he's 100%, is he just going to utilize him 100% because he hasn't had a bunch of carries this year now too? So you don't have the number of totes sort of stacking up against Christian McCaffrey, or are they going to try to play it slow with him and he's only going to be, a halftime player, a part-time player, and maybe they use Jordan Mason a little more on early downs, then on third downs go to McCaffrey, maybe filter in some Isaac Garindo. That's the way I think it probably should go, but Kyle Shanahan's never shown us he's going to do that. So it'll be fascinating to see how that running back rotation works when Christian McCaffrey's back.
One of the things I want to see is how does Christian McCaffrey help Brock Purdy? Right now, I would say, and I think most people would agree, that this has not been the most efficient version of Brock Purdy that we've seen in the 49er uniform. And when you look at some of the stats, I think there may be a reason why. Christian McCaffrey was a tremendous, I don't even want to call him a check down guy because he's so dynamic with the ball in his hands. And maybe a lot of these plays are kind of designed to get the ball in his hands. But, Christian McCaffrey is definitely someone who you want to you use him as a safety blanket. And with Brock Purdy, you're now talking about, I don't know, I'm looking at his targets from last season. There's multiple games where he actually had 10 plus targets, 10 targets against Baltimore, 10 targets against Jacksonville. He had a bunch of other games where, 8 targets and 7 targets. So a lot of targets going to him. Now you don't have that guy that not only helps with your efficiency, but helps keep the chains moving, keep the 49ers on time. So with Brock Purdy right now, who seems to be kind of hanging onto the ball a little too long at times, looking downfield a lot. I'm curious to see, hey, how much does it help to get Christian McCaffrey back? And do we see a different version of Brock Purdy where now he's playing a little bit more in rhythm as opposed to this guy that's holding onto the ball just a little too long?
I think it'll start to look a little bit more like we saw against the Cowboys, especially in the second half of the game, because there was more screens in this game. There was more short stuff and catch and run stuff. The yards after catch were back, and they've been kind of non-existent for the 49ers, especially to start the year, as the 49ers have thrown the ball more downfield and Brock Purdy's been more aggressive. I don't know if that was by design with Kyle Shanahan, or if Brock Purdy was just going out there and trying to be more aggressive and throw the ball downfield more. But the 49ers were last in YAC, which is insane for a 49ers Kyle Shanahan offense. But against, and David Lombardi relayed the yards per, or the yak yards per reception this season in every game. And the 49ers were very low to start the year, 3.4, 3, and 3.1. So about 3 yards after the catch per reception in weeks 1 through 3, which is very low. It jumped up a little bit to 6.1 yards in week 4. Week 5 was 5.3 yards. Against the Seahawks in week 6, it was 7.1 yards. Went back down to 4.3 yards per catch after the catch in week 7 against the Chiefs. And then a season high in week 8, 7.8 yards after the catch per reception. And so the 2 best games the 49ers have played this year had their 2 highest yards after the catch in week 6 against the Seahawks, week 8 against the Dallas Cowboys. And I guess you could say that the New York Jets was a really good game for the 49ers in week 1, but maybe that's what surprised some people in week 1. And now we know the Jets aren't as good of a football team as we thought in week 1 as well. But, and all those things, it's harder to have more yards after catch if you're throwing the ball further down the field. But I think obviously the 49ers are kind of settling into where they've always been before and where we more expected them to be, with shorter passing game, get the ball out in your playmakers' hands. And obviously Christian McCaffrey is going to add to that. And they're going to dial up stuff for him specifically to do those things. So I think that's probably a big aspect of how this is going to go going forward, with how Christian McCaffrey helps Brock Purdy, because it's not like a check down situation. Although I think when they are throwing hot and Christian McCaffrey is part of that, he can actually be dynamic in that as well.
I think the bigger question with Christian McCaffrey now is, does Kyle Shanahan help McCaffrey, protect himself? And we've seen Kyle Shanahan, whether you're 100% healthy or if you're going into a game taped and bandaged up, he doesn't care if he has to run you 25 times, even with these injuries. So can Kyle Shanahan save Christian McCaffrey, but can someone save Kyle Shanahan from ruining Christian McCaffrey and having him even more banged up? Christian McCaffrey coming back, maybe Kyle wants to ease it in there, but if we know anything about Kyle, once you say you're healthy and you're ready to play, heck, Deebo Samuel last night, a guy coming into a game with pneumonia, people are wondering what is his load going to be like in this game? Are they going to play him a lot? Is he going to be on the pitch count? No. Oh, we got Deebo. He's ready to play. Cool. We're throwing him the ball early and often. We're giving him handoffs. We're throwing him a bunch of screens. We're throwing them back-to-back screens. Whatever we got to do to get the ball in his hands, because he's out there on the field, we're going to do it. And I think sometimes, Kyle Shanahan, there's got to be somebody, a voice up top. Maybe his dad. Hey, Kyle, chill out just a little bit. This guy just came back. Let's ease this guy in a little bit. And I hope they do that for Christian McCaffrey, because the season's not ending tomorrow. You're going to need this guy in the next few months.
We'll see. Christian McCaffrey could be nearing his return to the San Francisco 49ers lineup for the first time this season. And I know one thing, fantasy owners, put Christian McCaffrey in your lineup when he is back. He'll get utilized plenty, even if it's not the full load.
Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if they win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. I cashed Steelers -5.5. I cashed Broncos minus, I don't remember the number, but honestly, they couldn't have made the number high enough for me not to want to take the Broncos against the Panthers. They would have covered it up to 2 touchdowns. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. And that winning $5 bet could be an NBA game. Tonight, the Nets host the Nuggets. FanDuel loves the Nuggets in this one, has them favored by 6.5. While the Nuggets have been brutal to start the season. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Good news long-term for the Green Bay Packers on the injury front, but what it means against the Detroit Lions.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast.
Lily Zhao joining us here coming up in a second. But on Monday, we got some really good news, at least long-term, on the Green Bay Packers injury situation. According to Rob Demovsky and reporting from ESPN, Jair Alexander missed any serious injury concerns. It looked a little tough at the end, but the knee seemed to be okay. There's video footage of Ja walking off the field in Jacksonville. He seemed to be in good spirits. He did the sword celebration. He's cheesing for fans in the stands. It seemed to be all good, but you never know. You get on the airplane, all of a sudden you get home, you got swelling in the knee. We just don't know. So missed serious injury there. Phew. Okay, right? Wipe the brow. Cool. Jordan Love. Less definitive on what we know about this one, but the imaging comes back positive, no serious damage. They're calling it a groin strain. We don't know the severity, but calling him day to day versus week to week is meaningful. I think you can make the argument that Malik Willis this week, not just that it's the smart move long term, but that a one-off game plan, craziness, just throw every, kitchen sink at the Lions with Willis at 100% Willis is a better option for the Packers than trying to plan for Jordan Love at 65, 70%. Now, if he's whatever he was against Minnesota, then he's going to play. And Matt LaFleur said as much. If he's ready to play, he's going to play. He said if he can go, he's going to go. So they're not worried about, oh, hey, the bye week's next week. And so they're not gaming this stuff out. They need to win. That's their perspective. And that's any coach is going, we got to win. Yeah, sometimes you do have to save the player from himself. But I think he mentioned, Matt LaFleur did, that Love himself was part of the conversations on Sunday that he didn't feel like he could protect himself, that the team didn't feel like he could protect himself, and that Love himself didn't feel like he could protect himself. That's part of the calculation here. But not a serious injury. And so that's good news for the Packers. Doesn't mean they'll win this week. Of course it doesn't, but that's good news. And then the other one that we were worried about, Evan Williams, who apparently was dealing with an injury leading up to the game, hamstring injury during the game, has to come out very early on. It throws everything into flux defensively. When Evan Williams goes out, Javon Bullard has to move from the nickel to safety, which means Keyshawn Nixon has to move from the boundary corner to the nickel, which means Eric Stokes has to move from the bench to the boundary corner, which means Carrington Valentine's going to come in and play some dime. It throws everything out of whack, and I don't think it's a surprise that Javon Bullard had his worst game as a pro when he spends all of spring ball and training camp playing safety. They sprinkle in some nickel slot stuff, and then a couple weeks into the season, they slide him in. Evan Williams plays safety. Now you're going to be the full-time nickel. He handles that, and then in the middle of the game, oh, by the way, now you got to go back to safety. And Key, you got to go back in the slot. And Eric Stokes, you've been on the bench. You got to come in cold, and you got to defend a quarterback who is red hot. Trevor Lawrence, again, I think deserves a ton of credit for the way that he played in the second half of this football game on Sunday in Jacksonville. Evan Williams, according to multiple reports, avoided major injury. He has a chance to play on Sunday against the Lions. And I think, putting Jordan Love aside, because the answer is always the quarterback when it comes to whose injury is most significant, who would you most want to have out there at something close to 100%, the answer is always the quarterback. But this is going to sound weird, but without Jameson Williams, I think it's more important for the Packers to have Evan Williams out there and something close to 100% than Jair Alexander, because Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to spend 50, 60, 70% of snaps in the slot anyway, which means Javon Bullard, Keyshawn Nixon, whatever it is. And frankly, I would rather just say it's Javon Bullard. That's the guy. He's your nickel, because I want him to be the guy defending the run against the Detroit Lions versus Keyshawn Nixon. And then Evan Williams patrolling the middle of the field where he is shown to be such a dynamic player. Sam Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jared Goff in breaking routes. That's what they want to do. They want to get in that middle of the field area. Well, if Evan Williams is going to play strong safety, or he's going to play deep and you're going to have Xavier McKinney playing up front, then that's the best opportunity for the Packers to have some success dealing with this Detroit Lions offense that has just beguiled everyone in the league so far. If Malik Willis plays, is having both Jair Alexander and Evan Williams going to be enough? Look, I don't know. Probably not. Probably not. But I had some people on Twitter suggest, oh, the Packers should just look, if Jordan Love is not going to be 100% healthy, then they should just essentially concede the L and live to fight another day, get Jordan Love back for the Bears game. I need you guys to understand something very important. If Jordan Love doesn't play, this team believes they can beat anybody with Malik Willis. And not just because they are now 2.5-0 with Malik Willis as the starter, though that's part of it. With the game on the line, and this is what we found out in the aftermath of the game, Matt LaFleur explained this. The Jaden Reed play was not in the game script. They talked about it on Tuesday. They didn't ultimately install it. It wasn't even in the game plan. And then you have a discussion on the sideline. Hey, they run that play action boot that sets up the rest of that play. And Matt LaFleur on the sideline, they decide, Jason Vrabel, the receivers coach, says, or passing game coordinator, whatever his title is these days, that, hey, I think it's there. I think we should run it. And so they do. And they hit it. It's a play that they didn't practice. Malik Willis has no doubt never run it because he doesn't get any reps as the backup quarterback, not real reps. He's doing scout team reps. And so with the game on the line, they called a concept they haven't practiced and wasn't even really in the game plan. And yet your backup quarterback is so locked in to the plan, to the preparation, to the practice, to the game script, to the game planning, all of these conversations, that he's ready to go, that your team executes that. Tucker Kraft one-on-one against Trayvon Walker, you get that blocked up. And not just blocked up, walled off. Malik Willis, and Matt LaFleur mentioned this yesterday at a press conference. A lot of times when you get that guy wide ass open, which is what he was, you baby that sucker. Let me just get it to him. And then he'll have to stop and turn around. And it's a 30-yard gain instead of a 50-yard gain. Malik Willis, he let that sucker fly. He let it go. And it's a perfect, he dots Jaden Reed with the chance to go catch and run. They're going to let Malik Willis play if Malik Willis is indeed the guy who's going to play. We don't know. My suspicion is Jordan Love will not play on Sunday. But we'll know more tomorrow, and we'll know more the next day, and we'll know more the next day. If Jordan Love is out there practicing, that's a horse of a different color. Now, Tuesday, no practice, so we're not going to see much. But Wednesday, if he's out there, Thursday, if he's out there with a soft tissue injury, like it's different with the knee. But if he's out there doing team stuff, we're not going to know because, media doesn't get to see the practices, just get to see the warm-ups. But if he's out there,